All right. So
did.
now I remember to hit the record button. So we are now live. We are now recording. All right. So let's get this show on the road. So welcome, everyone. Welcome to our guests as well to this first blab. As you might have guessed, we're blab novices. We've got no idea what we're doing, but hopefully as we progress, we'll get a little bit more au fait with the technology. So welcome to the first Small Business Australia blab. Now, a lot of the stuff that we're going to be talking about is Australia specific, but I think anyone here who joins the blab, if you're a small business owner, you should be able to get some sort of value and benefit out of what we're going to be talking about. Although I have to admit, the first blab that we're going to be doing today is really more about a discussion about starting a small business. So before we get onto that, let me introduce to you my lovely colleagues and co-hosts. So we have Stephen and Suzanne Brown there from Ep1 Lawyers, and the lovely Julie Sanderson from Jacaranda Grove Consulting. So before we get on, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to hand over and let my guests introduce themselves, what they do, why they do it, how good they are, and how much Steve's charging on an hourly basis. So, Steve, I'll hand over to you first of all.
Hi, everyone. Steve Brown's my name. I'm a partner in Ep1 Lawyers in Sydney. We look after all forms of businesses, from small business through to a few multinationals that we act for. And I've had a range of experience in startups, from pet care businesses, chemical businesses, cosmetic businesses, and restaurants. And it's exciting to be with people that are involved with startups. It's excellent because it's value additive, and a lot of legal work can be seen as very negative, but creation of businesses and people making a profit is just wonderful.
Suzanne, over to you.
I've run several businesses, from fashion design businesses to service-based businesses. I'm the business manager at Ep1 Lawyers, and I'm not your typical business manager because I like to get my hands dirty. So as well as managing everything that goes on, I like to get stuck in and write a web page, write a blog, do some graphic design, go out and network and meet new people. I'm really love just being out and about and getting to know everyone. I don't just like to sit back and make sure everything runs smoothly.
Hi, I'm Julie Sanderson, and my passion is marketing. I've got a background in accounting and marketing and started in the corporate world, and have now just spent the last 11 years helping small businesses and medium enterprises all start and get cracking. So they've made really good money and had a lot of fun doing it.
Superb. Thanks, guys. I was looking at Suzanne, making sure she wasn't going to burst out laughing because like your phone was going in the background. So
I know.
Do not disturb is your friend.
Well, we do sort of work on a 14-hour basis. People are used to even phoning, even though it is 7 o'clock here in the evening.
Yeah, fair enough. So a little bit about me. I have 3 sides to my business. I have my light side, my dark side, and my healthy side. The dark side of my business is that I've been a licensed commercial debt collector for well over 20 years now. I mainly concentrate on international collections between the UK and Australia and the UK. I also specialize in teaching small, medium-sized businesses how to maximize their ability to get paid on time every time. And we sort of do this by creating and deploying proven debt collection management strategies. So you'll never get to the point where you need someone like me to go and collect the money for you. So this is really more about risk mitigation than hardcore, I'm going to come and smack you over the back of the head with a torch or something. Not that we do that at all. I just want to point that out. The light side of my business, for at least 2 or 3 years now, I've been using LinkedIn as a lead generation tool for the debt collection side of my business. And that in itself has now sort of morphed into its own part of my business, which again is what I refer to as my light side. So I've been teaching everyone from high school students through to small businesses, business executives, how to use LinkedIn to help them, either find leads for their business, find a better job, help employers find better employees, better employers, all that sort of stuff. The healthy side of my business is that on the Northern Beaches here in Sydney, I actually also own a health food shop as well. So I've got many fingers and many pies, probably to the point now when I'm starting to use toes as well as fingers. But so that's what I do. And because this is our first blab, and I don't really want to sort of just chuck everyone in and at the deep end. So I think I'd make this more of a discussion panel for tonight, as opposed to asking the hard questions. So what I was curious to do, actually, when I was preparing some stuff for today's blab, I thought I'd have a quick look at the Australian Bureau of Statistics for some information about small business. Because I assumed, well, you're probably going to have something there, just didn't know really what you would have. And the information that I found, I wasn't surprised by two of the points that I'll tell you about in a minute, but I was just surprised about the last point. So I was trying to find out what the winners and the losers were for Australian business at the moment. And again, not really surprised. Construction industry has been the forerunner, running at 16.1%. How long have we been how long have we been riding the construction wave for? What, probably about 10 years? About that?
Yeah.
That's a lot of raping, pillaging. Now, ironically, the professional, scientific, and technical services sector runs relatively closely behind that at 11.9%. And it would stand to reason. Now we finished taking all that stuff out of the ground. We've got to get it to the tech guys to go, right, what are we going to do with these black bits of rock? And the runner-up, the third one, was the rental, hire, and real estate market. Now, that sort of surprised me a little bit, but then I realised, property prices, especially in Sydney and Victoria, I'm not sure what they're like in Queensland, where you are, Julie, but I mean, they'd be going nuts now for quite a few years. But obviously, if there's a winner, there's going to be some losers. And I have to admit, when I saw this, there was I think I might shed a tear, because the agriculture, forestry, fishing industry and the manufacturing industry have all been in a consistent decline in numbers since 2007, which is such a bloody shame when you consider, when you look at Australia, when you think of Australia, you think of beef, really, don't you? I mean, I do. It's just, yeah, I mean, well, there's that, New Zealand.
No, definitely will.
But it is shocking to see that you've got those sort of businesses that are falling to the wayside over than something like construction, which is basically a quick win, as opposed to something like agriculture, like the agribusiness, where it's more sustainable and much more long-term. So, and this is the one that really surprised me. So according to the ABS, the Australian Bureau of Statistics, 97% of Australian businesses in 2014, 97% was classed as a small business. So that's a business that has less than $2 million turnover. I had no idea it was 97%. I was expecting 50, maybe 40, but I mean 97, seriously? I had no idea. Did you have any idea that it was going to be that high?
Yeah.
It's very much the growth pattern over the last 10 years has been for that sector. And I've noticed that, in fact, we've become a whole nation of service providers. So instead of the manufacturers and the growers, we've effectively brought ourselves to almost consistently growing new business in the service industries. And the biggest negative for that is we've run out of money to pay overseas for any products or services that we want from over there. So we need to be trying to work out how we can export some of our services.
That's, I mean, you're bang on, basically. I mean, the facts that, and I'm guessing like most first world countries are in a very similar spot where basically they spent too much money, you got nothing left in your pocket. Now, admittedly, I'm just a lonely little debt collector. But for me, you would have thought you've run out of money, print some more. It's not that hard, surely. You know, you play Monopoly, yeah. Just go and beat your Aunt Jo over the head and steal her money instead. But there we go. So I tell you what I'd like to know, and I'll throw this one to you, Steve. What do you think the allure is for people that draws them in to starting their own small business?
I think there's two main factors. One's not an allure at all. One is just fear of not being able to eat. A lot of people are forced to set up their own business because they're out of a job or they can't get a job. And so in order to earn a living, they set up a business. And I think that it typifies why there's 97% of businesses are small businesses, because they are generally people that are just earning money as an income. And a lot of small businesses are not actually a business where the person manages the operations of the transaction. They're actually involved in doing the work themselves, which isn't truly a business. So you've got a lot of plumbers and tradespeople that are running their own companies, are running their own sole traders or partnerships, and there's less than 10 people in the organisation, and just earning a wage. They're not actually generating goodwill that they'll be able to sell. For example, like legal firms, there's a lot of small legal practices. The goodwill resides in the individual. And when that individual dies, no one wants to buy it because it's so attached to the person. Why would you pay money to that person who won't be around to generate further income from you? So, it's complicated. The next stage, that's one side. The other side are people who genuinely have an idea, or they have a passion for developing either an online service, or they have a food product, or we've got one client at the moment who is a vet, funnily, which is interesting, and he's producing online services for vets around the world, with training and assistance, and he's come from that area because he was an educator at university, and he and the university parted ways, and so he's now seen another avenue of doing the same thing he was doing at university, but to generate income for himself.
So do you think there's this continued approach of like feast and famine?
Yes.
Because when I saw that number of 97%, I'm thinking, God, you little Aussies, got to give it a go. Go on,
But see, that's when 90% of businesses in the first 12 months fail.
Well, and we'll come to that later. I mean, I'm curious to know, Julie, how did you get into business? What made you start your own business? Follow that one, huh?
Oh, I know. Look, it was just thinking about what Stephen was saying. It really reminded me of myself, because I'd walked away from a corporate world wanting flexibility, and I wanted to deal with real people who I liked. So it was a very much a personal decision. It had nothing to do with financials or that I had some great idea. It was the fact that I knew that I could do work for lots of people that I really enjoyed working with, so that I didn't have to go and just slog away somewhere with people that I didn't enjoy and with politics I didn't enjoy. So you create your niche because you want it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I have to admit, I think we've all probably had our own respective corporate roles. I mean, like an office politics. Oh God, mate, I'd rather eat my left arm than get involved in that. Yeah. It's seriously a pain in the backside. But I'm sure we've all. I know I've certainly experienced it, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. But has everyone had that whole feast and famine? It's always been that sort of thing in the back of your head. where am I going to get my next client? Where am I going to get my next paycheck from? Oh, have I got enough money to pay the bills? Do you think that feeling ever goes away? Or now have you got to a point in your own businesses that you go, I don't need to worry. I know that I've got a good client base. Or is it just still there?
Well, we've been operating for 12 years, and I still don't know where the next client's coming from. So it's always in the back of my mind. I'm not comfortable because even with some of our clients, like we've had some quite large corporates, and for 5 years they'll be work after day, new job. Then all of a sudden their cycle ends, and all the contracts that we're working on have been put into place, and it goes quiet, and so nothing comes from them for a period of time, and there's this lull, and then because you've been working so much with them, you've not been able to generate work to take that place. So no, I certainly from our point of view, worrying about where the next dollar is coming from to be able to survive is a constant worry, and which makes sort of being in business not necessarily the most pleasant of experiences.
Yeah. Is that the same with you, Julie? I mean, do you have to constantly make sure that you got stuff in your pipeline?
Indeed. And strangely enough, I think that what Stephen and I do particularly, even though they're vastly different, because, how do I put it? Stephen will have, as a lawyer, will have lots of regular work with people, but it won't necessarily last forever. And there will always be different tasks coming up that they need him, and I'm the same. I might teach, I'm very much in the view of, if I've got a small group, a small business that I'm working with, I'd much rather teach them how to do what I do and then guide them. And that way they can continue and have a little bit of ownership of what the decision making is, instead of wandering off and on a tangent when they don't really have any thought of where they're going from a marketing perspective. But once I've taught them that path, then I either need to help them see they need another path to learn, or I have got to go and find more business. So exactly that, finding that funnel. And I know that Suzanne actually is really great at going out and keeping that funnel open for Etienne, because she's forever talking to people and, getting to know people and understanding, because it's all about stories.
I can't stop her from talking.
Sorry.
Well, but Julie, that's because of a lot of what you've taught me too. And
go.
Julie's great. Julie's great at that. She's taught me a lot of things about marketing because I don't have any marketing background, so I rely on Julie to teach me what I need to know, and it's about teaching me how. And she's taught me all the things about how to use the social media, so I need to produce the post, I need to produce the landing page, I need to produce something to download, and then I need to market to the people so everyone knows it's there. We've just set up an association with BusyNet magazine, in which Stephen's just written a paper about people going into small business and into franchises, and what is that going to be, which people are appropriate to do that sort of business. I now have to, once that goes in, when it comes out in print, I now have to go and make sure everybody knows that it's there, because it's fine just to put it out in print and it sits in the magazine on cafe counters. Yeah. But if I actually go out there and publicise it, that it's there, then we're filling that funnel all the time. And I know it's very controversial, and I don't know whether it's true or not, but I was at a seminar a couple of months ago, and there was a guy who said there was new research that said it cost less money to fill the funnel with new people than it does to continually keep the people you've got. And that goes against everything we've always been taught about retaining the clients.
Oh, then we get into relationship marketing.
Well, that's right.
So, and actually, this brings me to my next point. And And Julia, I'll throw this over to you actually. With small businesses, what do you think are the most common issues, the most common pain points that people experience when they start their first business?
Goodness gracious. Pain points in the point of view of what is going to make or break or put them into that group that just fail.
Exactly.
There are two key areas. The first is that they do absolutely zero research. They think that they have this brilliant idea that nobody's ever thought about before. The reason that nobody's ever put into practice before is that nobody wants it. The other pain point is that they don't actually do any planning. They think they might do some business planning from the point of view of, I've got this much money and that therefore that will get my stationery and my website and my my basic let's go to town every first 12 months. But what they don't plan for is what do they really want personally out of the business at the end of 12 months or 5 years or 20 years. Until they do that planning and then add into it the research for the product or service they're trying to sell, they're not going to actually know whether it's, first of all, worthwhile doing it all, and then whether there's a market for it, and then whether they can make any money out of it. And they stop there, and then they lose money, fail.
Okay, so
a lot of people think because they are a good lawyer, they know how to be a lawyer, or they know how to draw pretty pictures so they can be a graphic designer. They think that because they're good at what they do, they can run their own business. Yes. But they have no law. When lawyers go to law school, they teach them to be lawyers. They don't teach them any business skills. So they all go out, and lawyers are typically people who like to run their own businesses because they don't often play well together. They like to argue with each other. That's what they're meant to do. So there's lots and lots of lawyers out there working for themselves, and there's lots of them failing in business because they don't have any business skills. And I think one of the big things is because someone's good at doing something, they think they can run their business.
Okay, so out of that entire conversation, my one word response to everything that you guys have just said, education.
Absolutely.
There seems to be a distinct lack of education when it comes to small business. I mean, I have stepped on so many bloody landmines when it comes to my own business. You would be like, how are you still alive?
And that's right. The difficulty is with many small businesses, they haven't got the funds to spend. It's like those computer games where you get a number of limited resources at the beginning of the game. And do you use those resources to build the best defense, or do you use the resources to go out there and attack, which in a business sense is market? And most new business owners that don't have that education will use the money to do the marketing because that's where they see the benefit. And if they go through and they don't fall over their own feet, they'll be successful. And then when it does come time to actually worrying about protection, because they've never had it and they've been lucky enough never to have to worry about it, they can't be bothered doing it. So some of our high net worth individuals are the hardest and most difficult people to work with, because if they've been fortunate and not tripped over their feet, they just do not see the value in having the appropriate asset protection. We've got one client who has, at one point in time had 98 million in net assets. And because of some stock market crashes, he's lost that down to about 20 million, which is still quite good. But the difference between having 20 million and 98 is substantial. But even now, try to get him to take the appropriate steps to have asset protection for his assets. He doesn't. He just signs everything up still in his own name, still gives personal guarantees. He just doesn't appreciate it because he's been fortunate through the last 40 years of his business life.
But you know, it's the same old thing. It's if you've been dodging bullets for so long, you know, there's only so many chambers. You're going to get shot at some point. And the problem is, until you've been shot,
you don't know.
You don't know.
Exactly.
And that's ironically, that's what happens with my business. They're like, oh no, we're fine. You know, we don't need terms and conditions. Oh no, we don't need someone to go and you know teach us how to go and collect money. And then all of a sudden they've got all these sales, but they've got no one at the back end to go and collect the revenue. And then they wonder why they're all arse about face in terms of like their you know their bottom line. It's like, well, you've got all this revenue sitting here, and you haven't got anyone down here to collect it. Why? Well, we've been fine before. You know, there's your gun, there's your bullets. I mean, you know, everything really boils down to, I think, education. So with that in mind, I mean, like, you know, we have to learn so many things as business owners. Do you think that there should be more support, more education from, you know, local, state, federal government here in Australia?
I think the answer to that question is there is a hell of a lot of it available. Just the people, because they don't do their research, don't know that it's there.
Can I just put my hand up and say I had no idea? What is available?
You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Small business owners believe they're too busy trying to run their business that they don't have time to go and educate themselves. Unless they're in a profession that requires continuing professional development, and in that continuing professional development, a lot of times you will get business skills taught to you. Unless you're in that sort of environment, small business people just don't do it because they believe they don't have the time or money to invest in it.
Okay, let me just bring it back to the question though. Hold on 1 second. What is available at a local, state, federal level?
Yep. Well, the things that are available on the Department of Fair Trading website of every state, there are how to set up a business, what you need for your business, what licenses. There are searches that you can put in. You know, if you want to set up a motor mechanic shop, what licenses do you need? And you can go to the Department of Fair Trading, put in that information, and they'll give you all of the licenses you need. They'll tell you need the business name. They'll tell you about trademarks. They'll tell you about a corporation. They'll discuss trusts. On the ATO, the Australian Taxation Office website, if you want to learn about what forms you have to fill in for capital gains tax, goods and services tax, your AVN, all of the information of how to is there. The IP Australia has all the information about what's the distinguishing features between a business name, a trademark, a patent, copyright, all free. It's all accessible. If you start looking for what's a contract, there's so much information on the net, all worldwide, you know, Australia-centric, New Zealand-centric, US-centric, Canadian, UK. There is just so much. In fact, if I wanted to do, you know, my research today has made it so much easier. I've got all these books behind me, but whilst the information there, it's so much easier for me now just to find it on the internet. The difference is I know where to look, and I can look very quickly.
Yeah.
But the information is there. If people spend the time to go through it, I think the difference is that certain people can learn by reading. Suzanne, for example, is very good at learning to educate herself by reading. I'm better at learning when someone teaches me at a face-to-face or shows me what to do. And I think there are, if that makeup, the difficulty then is that even though it's there on the internet, you don't assimilate it quickly enough, and you don't know to pick the good things out of the information from the bad things. But there is a hell of a lot, and that's on the internet. You've also got the BSCs, which are the business enterprise centres, which are government funded to some.
Are they all around Australia? Or are they New South Wales? Just
they certainly are. No, they're everywhere.
Yeah. And in the Parramatta area, the last BEC was operated by the University of Western Sydney. It's now been taken over by another group. There's information from the chambers of commerce that you can get. So I think the information is available. It's whether people will avail themselves of it because they either haven't got the time or they don't think they can understand it. But it's certainly there if you source it.
But the takeaway that I take from what you've just said is that that's all your legal, your back end, your all the scary stuff.
No.
What about things like marketing and?
Oh, it's all there. There is so much stuff on marketing. It's not funny.
But is it laid out in a way for people to easily access and easily understand? Because and you're absolutely right, Stephen, in terms of if Suzanne's great at reading and learning, I'm like you. You talk to me face to face, I'll get it. You give me a book, nah, can't be bothered. My brain just doesn't work that way. But and does there need to be that better sort of interaction from at a government level to help business owners understand their environment, their target markets, what they need to do, how to market, when to market?
That's not a government's job.
No, I'm more loath to say put a government layer in there that we don't really need. But I think that there is an opportunity that to teach small business owners and medium business owners particularly the things that they don't actually know that they don't know. One of the best examples I can think of is search engine optimization. Yep. It's a huge chunk of marketing that needs to be addressed now because everything, as we know, is online. Probably half the business people that I speak to don't actually believe that they need it because they don't know what it is. So until they actually understand what it is, how do they know they need it?
Yeah.
An overarching explanation of all the new things that are coming up in the business world and all the things that could be used would be fabulous if we could get that out there as a succinct piece of information. But I think it's always going to be really difficult unless you involve government. And it's the minute you involve government in that kind of space, you're going to be encouraging those that are doing the teaching in general have probably never worked in the real world. And that's been my personal experience. Yeah. Going and finding out things and even assisting training in the investment development board areas. Most of the people teaching have never actually had a small business or a medium business or have had to do it themselves.
I agree. You've got a bureaucrat who's worked within a large organisation trying to tell someone who wants to be an entrepreneur. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
I know there's a few unis, colleges in America that are doing entrepreneurship as a course. And we don't really have that here at this point in time. But I'm on a board for Breed, and as part of that Breed board, we do run monthly training sessions, which are free to small business owners that they can come and attend. And we look at marketing, we look at SEO, employment aspects, debt recovery, tax. We do a whole mishmash, and we've been doing it for 2 years now.
Stephen, can you just explain to everyone what Breed is?
Yeah, Breed is a non-profit organisation that has a number of facets to it, but one of its facets is to run a business incubator, and it was originally funded by the government to assist people in a region of Sydney where there was a low socioeconomic demographic, and it was there to assist people in setting up their own businesses as startups. And from that, they now allow or give them office space in a collegiate networking environment. And as a facility, we also provide this free training.
Okay. Now, are they just based in New South Wales, or are they based all over the place?
Currently,
There's a little twinkle in your eye.
Well, no, because the board is working on trying to get them to go broader than New South Wales.
Right.
But the executive are kicking and screaming because they're so parochial, and they're sort of based in western suburbs. They can't sort of seem to see the bigger picture. But I think we'll get them there.
There we go. So, and I know we sort of just, I more or less alluded to this before, but I'm curious to know, what are the landmines for small business owners to avoid? I could go on for this conversation and give you a list as long as my bloody arm of the landmines that I've stood on and the landmines that I've avoided. But I'd like just to get your take. And Suzanne, I'll throw to you. What do you think are those common pitfalls, those common mistakes that small business owners always make?
Trying to do everything themselves, not knowing when they need professional assistance. So whether they need a lawyer or whether they need someone to help them with their marketing, they've got to know when they can and when they can't. And every networking event I go to, I have a bookkeeper and accountant say, "Oh, people shouldn't be doing their own books. They need to get a bookkeeper to do it." And that's really true. They do need it if they don't have that skill. But they may have the skill of being able to do their books, but they might not have the skill of being able to do their marketing. So they've got to know what they can do and know what they can't do. And every single person is different because everyone has different skills and experience.
Judy?
Making sure they pay themselves first. I see so many small businesses put money into investing. Yeah. Not on your own.
Not now.
No, thank goodness. And I think that unless there's so many small businesses out there that are not paying themselves, looking at the bottom line perhaps at the end of next BAS or whatever, and going, "Oh, that was a good month," forgetting that they've worked for 150 hours and paid themselves nothing. That's probably my first thing. And I just have to agree with Suzanne. Doing everything yourself is totally impossible. Probably the other thing is not having the end in mind. They've got to know where they're heading. Again, I always harp on about planning, and not one of these beautifully documented and all pretty colours and sits there in its little velvet stand or behind glass. It's got to be that month by month, looking and reviewing and adjusting and changing and keeping it going so that it is actually real.
So when you say, if you can just clarify that comment about, the end, because like if you're a small business owner and you're like, "I've just started," you talk about the bloody end. What? Do me a favour. What do you mean by the end?
I really do mean the end. Do you want to work in this business for the next 5, 10 or 15 years? If so, that's wonderful. So at the end of that too, do you want to sell it? Do you want to give it to your children? Do you want to just close it down? Do you want to franchise it? Would you like to try and put it on the stock exchange? All of these things you need to be thinking about from day one. You may not actually use it, but you need to be thinking about it.
And everyone needs to have a 1-page 5-year plan that says, what am I going to do this year? What am I going to do in year 2, right through to year 5, so they know that where they're going. And that needs to be personal as well as professional and in your business. Because if you don't know personally where you're going, you can't know where your business is going.
Yeah. Anything to add to that, Stephen?
No, I agree. It's you certainly need to know what the end game is and to understand, and that end game can change. You may start out saying, "Look, I just want to run this as an income." Then you discover that it can be franchised, and look at how you're going to get out of it. I agree. It's crucial to have that plan and have that goal that you're striving for.
So do you think it's the reason why there's the failure rate for small business is so high?
Because they don't know what they're doing. And generally they either don't have the capital to proceed, or they will go out and get capital that they don't really need. Rather than taking 5 years to get to the particular level they want to go to, they want to try to do it in 2, and they take on more capital than what they want, debt capital, and then they can't fund it. Interest rates change, the market changes, or they've chosen the wrong market. I suppose the typical example, or easy example, is in the rag trade. If you've got someone who goes out and is a designer, and they do really well, and they're selling lots of clothing, and they're being lauded as this wonder of design, then all of a sudden one year they think, oh, well, I'll do something different, and they spend all their money on designing and getting all these particular articles of clothing made, only to find that no one likes them. And so their entire business fails overnight in one season because they just didn't pick the right market. And that's where it's really complicated. And
they could do it with a fashion designer, Suzanne.
Yes.
So, okay, let's start to wrap it up then. Give me your top tips for small business owners. Julie, I'll start with you. Give me your top 3.
Do research. Go out and find out the things that you're passionate about. Is anybody else passionate about it? And can you make money out of it? So do some research, figure it out, and then go down that path and stick to it. That's one of the other things. Make your plan, stick to your plan, adjust it as necessary. The amount of times I see people create their vision for the next 12 months and then they change it every month without any research or background to it. So try that.
Suzanne?
Yeah, make a plan. Know what you can and can't do, and get professional advice, but also get advice about the advice you're going to get. Get recommendations, get personal recommendations before you just go out and take
my brain sort of left my ears. Get advice about the advice.
Yes, the advice about the advice, because if you don't get personal recommendations, you can go off and get some shonk that's going to do something for you, and they don't know any more about it than you, just because they might have a prettier webpage than you.
Valid point.
And that's where business coaches can come in, because the business coach can help you sort of say, you'd need this advice now. So that's getting the advice about the advice. Like the business coach may not be a marketer, but say you need marketing advice. Or at this point in time, you don't need marketing. You've done well enough. You now need to consolidate.
Yeah.
So don't worry about growing. Worry now about consolidating. And I think that's where business advisors and coaches can be of great assistance.
Okay. All right. So a question without notice here. And this is more about, I guess, the Australian economy in general. Do you think we're in a good spot, or do you think, give it 6 months, 12 months, do you think things are going to change dramatically?
I think we can be in a good spot if we are proactive now. A little bit like we need to discover ways to sell ourselves overseas, as I said in the very beginning. We need to be able to work out what we can do again that's valuable to other people, so that we're not dipping into our own pockets internally for the next years.
Any other thoughts?
Look, the market, the economy at the moment is totally disrupted by what's going on. We've got the internet, we've got trying to sell services. The difficulty with selling services in Australia is they've got to be face-to-face. And if they're not face-to-face and they're online, then why use Australia unless it's got a cost advantage? And we're not going to beat the professional services that are coming from India or the Philippines. So we've got real problems. We talk about selling services, but we can't compete financially because our hourly rate kills us. We've got no manufacturing. So I really think that if we are going to have any form of economy, we've got to have this silly sub-economy of construction and real estate. Because without that, we don't really have an economy at all anymore. You know, we're living on an economy generated on building houses and bringing people in. Now, when the merry-go-round stops and we've got less people coming in, I don't know where that's going to take us. But I don't see we're actually in a very good position at the moment. Now, that's probably because of the disruption. But the thing is, it's like the stock exchange. We know where the stock exchange ended today, and we can make estimates on the trends, but no one really knows what's going to happen, where it's going to start tomorrow, because we don't know what's going to happen overnight. There could be another September 11 somewhere, and everything will totally change overnight, and we simply haven't got a clue.
Wow, talk about leaving it on a positive note.
I can't give it
a... Look, I have to admit, from if there's one thing that I've noticed, I mean, I've been in Australia since 2001. If there's one thing that I've known about Australians, and just for the record, ladies and gentlemen, I am an Australian. I paid $165 to become one of you, just in case you're wondering, Julie.
We can tell
you've got a wonderful nature of talking down yourselves, and you've got a great way of talking down the economy. And you talk down the economy too much, what's going to happen? People are going to get nervous. People will stop spending. I mean, obviously, you've got the other end of the spectrum there when you had the likes of like Kevin Rudd chucking out $900 to everyone and their pet dog, including, you know, people that were left Australia and in the UK. Not that I know people that had that, but there we go. But you know, it's you almost begin to think, who the hell is managing the funds? Because I mean, I'm not politically one way or another. To me, they're all muppets. They don't know. None of them know their arse from their elbow, quite frankly. But it would just be nice to know that there is a clear, concise direction that the elected government wants to take us, as opposed to people going, I've got no idea. Because for me, I mean, in the way I do my business, I'm waiting for China to implode. Because when China implodes, quite frankly, I'm going to make a lot of money. Because there are so many people that are tied up in the China market that all of a sudden I'm going to have people that are owed money everywhere, left, right, and centre. And I mean, yeah, I make money out of other people's misery, but that's the nature of the world, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, that's what employers do too.
Well, yeah, exactly, the dark side. But you know, it's just one of those things. But I was just always curious to know whether it was just me and my, you know, muppet head that was thinking that way, or would there be other people that go, do you know what? Why are you talking down the economy? You know, you've got this wonderful land, you've got this amazing stuff that people can grow, feed. I mean, and I hate to sound like bloody Alan Jones, but when you think that there is so much space here that you can grow, that you could actually just feed so many people if you actually done it the right way. I mean, you've got to question, why would you go down one industry like construction and mining as opposed to something like agriculture? I don't get it.
Because we can't compete with Africa.
Yeah, but you would have thought Africa being more of Europe and that side of the world. When you think, I mean, what? Who's our biggest trading partners?
China,
India, well, I guess Malaysia as well.
I think China, America, Japan, in that order.
I think with foodstuffs, it's quite a different scenario. I know at the moment there's an Asian consortium purchasing, or in the process of purchasing, an enormous property in North Queensland to produce their own beef to then be able to take it back home, because their view is that the Australian process or the system for that kind of export is not working for them.
Yeah.
And so maybe we need to become cleverer at dealing well with our Asian partners to give them a service that they're happy with. It's a challenge because we think very differently.
Yes, but why would they need to deal with us when they can do it all themselves? They can come here, they can buy the land, they can buy the cows, they can take it home.
Exactly. There's the rub, because if they're buying out the Australian properties, if the poor bloody farmers are on this ban, you've got the banks, the big four banks trying to screw them left, right and centre, and then someone from China pops on and says, mate, I'll give you 20 million, whatever. Yeah, mate, of course they're going to take the money and run. And then you sort of left them with an absolute bigger pain in the backside, because then you've got, like you said, Julie, like you've got the people that will grow the beef and export it, not for the Australian population, but for China. I mean, and also that revenue has just gone from the Australian economy.
And, you can't blame them, because they need to feed an enormous amount of people for the right price.
Yeah, absolutely. Crazy stuff. But there we go. I think we got slightly off topic there. So apologies, everyone. We're just going our little rant about Australia, the economic environment about Australia. And I think I started that one, so I do apologise. So what we'll do, we'll wrap it up there. Now, next week, you're all lovely and happy to come along next week?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
just remember, I know where you live, or at least two of you.
All right, I've got room for more.
So next week, what we'll do, we'll talk about websites for small business. So we'll look about how we can market websites. Your favorite subject, Julie, of SEO.
Oh, I love it.
I love SEO. And then also we'll look at things like, making sure that your website is legally compliant. So your terms and conditions, your privacy policy, and everything else that Stephen and Suzanne can think of as well that I've not remembered. So, and obviously, if you've got any other things that we want to throw into the mix as well, then that's fantastic. To everyone that is watching this, thank you for sticking with the Mad Australians for our first blab. Next week will be more questions and answers. So if you have an online business, whether it's an online business that you've got in a different country that you're thinking about expanding into Australia, and you've got questions on how to do that, then come along next week, ask your questions, and our panel of lovely experts will be here to answer them for you. So I'm going to end the recording there. So thanks, everyone, and I will speak to you all in due course. So I'll see you next week, everyone. Take care.
Bye. Press the red button.